This is the Batman villain that you've never heard of. In my opinion, one of the most underrated Batman villains is Catman. So you might be thinking, who is Catman? Because we have never really seen a lot of adaptations of Catman. And so today's video, I will be talking about who Catman is, why we don't see him very often, and why I think we should see him more often. So Catman first appeared in Detective Comics issue 311, which was published in January 1963. And I did a little bit of research on the Batman wiki. So the Catman is Thomas Blake, and it says that Thomas Blake was a world famous trapper of jungle cats who turned to crime because he had grown bored with hunting and had squandered most of his fortune. He became a burglar called Catman who committed his crimes in a cat suit made out of the ancient African cloth he believed gave him 9 lives. After many years of defeat at the hands of Batman and Catwoman, Catman became something of a joke in the supervillain community, so he retired and moved to Africa to live among a pride of lions. So my first thoughts when seeing Catman is, why does his suit look a lot like Batman's? Obviously Batman is known for wearing darker tones, and Catman is wearing yellow and brown tones. It's just really weird because his cowl is the same, his belt is the same, and although he has like these claws on his knuckles, and he may have different gadgets on him, he looks a lot like Batman. I'd even go as far as saying it could be a different Batman suit. Like if you saw him and you didn't know who he was, you would think that this is just a different variation of one of Batman's suits. Like supervillains can wear a lot of different masks, and the fact that he chose a cowl that looks like Batman's and just made it a cat is kind of interesting. Now, it may come across as lazy by the writers, but I'd like to argue that it kind of gravitates your attention because it looks like Batman and it's not. So some of his abilities consist of hand-to-hand combat, skills in use of bladed weapons, and high intelligence. This is really interesting because minus the bladed weapons, this is Batman's skill set, right? He's the greatest detective, and for a human, he has some of the best hand-to-hand combat on Earth. So the fact that Catman possesses these powers as well is kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me of Flash, where him and the Reverse Flash have the same powers, the same weaknesses. Sure, the Reverse Flash may be stronger at times, but for the most part, they have the same abilities, and so it kind of makes fights interesting. Now, my question is, why don't we see him in more Batman adaptations? He's only been in a handful of comics, and so I did some research. I couldn't find a solid reason. There wasn't a solid reason to why they don't make more Catman versus Batman. However, I believe that because Catman isn't a very popular character, it's hard to involve him in Batman stories, as villains are meant to be just as engaging as Batman. Catman, again, can come across as a lazy villain because he's essentially Batman as a different animal. Now, instead of neglecting this character, I think that this character would be a very good side mission in Batman video games. And I know obviously the Arkham series, we're probably not going to get a solo Batman game, but he would have been a nice side character for, like, I guess, Batman Arkham City, where the game's not focused on him, but he has a little bit of a role in it. He's not the most entertaining villain. Again, he's not like a Scarecrow, a Joker, Mr. Freeze, where he's going to be just as engaging, if not more engaging, than Batman with his abilities. But it would be kind of cool just to get him in there, right? Because he looks cool. Like, he may not have the most out-of-this-world ability, but he looks cool. And he's kind of an even match for Batman as being a human and being, like, very limited on to what he can do. And honestly, I'm kind of tired of getting the same villain lineup over and over again, right? I'm not saying, like, all the Arkham games just shove the same villains in, but we even had the Joker in a game where he was dead. Like, he was actually dead, but he still made an appearance in Arkham Knight, which was kind of a little bit annoying. I get why he was in it. I'm not saying the plot allowed him to be in it. He wasn't just thrown in there. He wasn't just forced in there. However, I feel like we had enough of the Joker. And I know I mentioned him being a good fit in City, but I think he'd be an even better fit in Knight. Because in Arkham Knight, we have a lot of villains, but the side missions, like Firefly, for example, like, it was just kind of annoying. I would like more hand-to-hand combat, like a Deathstroke boss fight as like a side mission. That would have been so amazing if Catman was in Knight. But he's never been mentioned in the game before, so who even knows if he exists in this universe? And look, Maybe Batman goes and he talks to Catwoman and says like, look, we need to get this guy out of here because I already have enough on my plate with the Arkham Knight. I already have enough on my plate with the fear toxin going around. Let's team up. Let's get Catman out of here. And if you help me do this, I'll look the other way, right? Like I won't come after you. I'll look the other way, providing that Catwoman doesn't go around robbing a bunch of banks because I don't think Batman would allow that. But and look, I know I'm just using my imagination. There's probably gonna be some plot holes in here, but I think that Catman shouldn't be pushed to the side. I'm not saying force him into a game, force him into more comics, force him into live adaptations. No, I'm not saying that. But it would be kind of cool to show him some love because, again, I don't know how many appearances he's had in total, but it hasn't been that many. Like, I think it's no more than 5 or 6. I'm not a very big comic book guy, so that's why. But if you know anything about Catman that I didn't mention, if you leave it in the comments, that'd be amazing. As always, drop a like, subscribe if you like this kind of content. I'll be covering a lot more DC content and hopefully Marvel too. It's just Marvel's kind of, not really doing much with video games right now. And before you say, oh, well, Spider-Man 2, brother, I don't own a PS5, so there's no way of me playing that until it comes out on Steam. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.